is any kind of electronic timer that makes a beeping noise. You could test with a wind-up timer, but they usually make a vibrating noise. And the reason a beeping noise is good is because all animals seem to respond to high-pitched sounds as an alarm cry. The reason that smoke alarms and fire engines have the tones that they do, smoke alarms in particular cannot be heard by a lot of deaf people or hard of hearing people because you don't hear the upper registers. So a lot of fire engine sounds are designed that everyone can hear them, so they'll have low pitches involved. But the high-pitched alarm cry is interpreted by dogs as either a prey animal that's dying and needs to be killed and eaten, or a wounded pack member, and with us humans, it's the scream of a baby being carried away by a jaguar. I mean, that is the response you have in your heart when you hear a child scream in pain. And it's a strong response when no matter what species you are of social animal. So what we want is for the dog to be curious. Some dogs are aggressive, that's very rare. Some terriers want to chew up the timer, but they don't usually attack it like it was an animal. But you will get very strong interest sometimes. Strong interest is better. Again, like with the other knock, if you even get the mildest show of, what's that? Orienting response, which is unconscious. When animals have an orienting response to sounds, it's not really under their power. It's an automatic response to locate what a sound is by tilting their head, and they use their ears to triangulate and get the sound's location. And then they might ignore it, or they might go ahead and investigate. Obviously, we want the dog, which is easiest to train, the dog that already runs to sounds. That saves you about a month of training. The dog that runs and picks up the timer, well, it might have retrieve instinct, it might want to kill the timer. Whatever it is, it's not afraid to have something beeping in its mouth. The dog that goes over and investigates, great. And another part of our test is going to be, is it still interested after it discovers the timer is sort of meaningless? The first time I do this, I'm going to hold the timer behind my back. And that's just to see if I get a response without fear.
Are you doing that now?
I usually set them to 1 second, so that all I have to do is press the start button. Because they usually make a beep when you set them, and you kind of don't want anything going on before the actual test.
Pause for
So
a
this is
second.
already... So the dog is relaxed. She's not in any particular, state of mind except just kind of hanging out. I have her on a leash because I like to test dogs on a leash. Because I'm used to testing shelter dogs. If the dog was in a safe area like a house, you don't need a leash. Okay, excellent. We got a nice orienting response. She's like, wonder what that is. And she continued to kind of look in the direction of the sound. That she didn't get up isn't really a problem for me. At least I know she's not deaf and she's not afraid. So now what I want to do is I'm going to set the timer to 10 seconds. By putting it on the ground, I remove the confusion of, is the dog coming to me because she likes people or because she hears the sound? So I just like to have that one variable. Let's stop. When I put the timer on the ground, I'll set it for 10 seconds. I'd like the dog to investigate it and then discount it as anything interesting. So once the dog knows it's in the environment and has checked it out, then when it rings, it'll be responding to the sound rather than just sight of something that a human places on the ground. Hey puppy, I'm going to put this on the ground. I'm going to set it for 10 seconds. Yeah. 10 seconds should do it, huh? Okay, here's this little dealie. Putting it on the ground there. What do you think that is? And I'm going to ignore the dog. I don't want to insert myself in part of this. got a little too much for her ears or whatever, but she showed curiosity. She showed orienting response. She was interested. She went and investigated it, and after she investigated it, she sort of decided, well, I think she's a little bit stressed by it, but I wouldn't say that with 100% certainty, because she's a little bit of a stressed dog anyway, so hard to tell. Come here, baby boo. Good girl. Good baby. Yeah, come on. Charlie. Good girl. The second time that you put it down is really revealing. Some dogs habituate to sounds. All of us habituate to stimuli, and a hearing dog doesn't, or maybe it does a lot less than a normal dog. So the same sound might get the same reaction again and again. In real life sound training, sounds do happen again and again. And a dog that realizes that, oh, I haven't gotten a treat the last 5 times when that sound happened, so I'm going to continue sleeping, is harder to train than a dog who every time the sound happens, he almost can't help it. He's like, what's that? So at the very least, even if you don't keep up the training on that hearing dog, at the very least, if you see him going, well, you've got an alert there, even at the worst possible scenario. Okay, again, on the ground. Good girl. Good Charlie. Yeah. Good girl. Yeah. What's a so good? Come on. Wake up. Yeah. Oh, the baby, huh? Okay, that's still a good response for me. It's not the best response, but we have a dog with something we can work with. If you combine that response with treats, in a very short time, you might have a dog that actively goes to the timer. Good girl.